The moon hung low, a pale, bloated orb casting its silver light over the ruins of what was once a thriving city. Kael crouched in the shadows of a crumbling skyscraper, his breath shallow, his senses heightened. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the acrid tang of alien technology. His claws dug into the cracked concrete beneath him, the faint hum of his transformation simmering just beneath his skin. Kael was a werewolf, cursed or blessed, with a dual nature he could never fully control. By day, he was a man, haunted by the memories of a world that no longer existed. By night, he was a monster, a creature of raw power and instinct. But even the monster in him feared the Vortex. The Vortex were alien hunters, beings of cold, calculated cruelty, who had descended upon Earth like a plague. They didn't come for resources or conquest. They came for sport. Humans, animals, even the supernatural creatures that had once hidden in the shadows. All were prey to them. Kael had seen their ships, sleek and silent, gliding through the skies like predators. He had heard the screams of those they hunted, the sickening crack of their energy whips, and the guttural laughter that followed. Kael's ears twitched as a faint sound reached him, a low, mechanical hum. He pressed himself deeper into the shadows, his golden eyes narrowing. A Vortex scout emerged from the darkness, its elongated limbs moving with unnatural grace. Its armor shimmered like oil, and its face was a featureless mask save for a single glowing red eye. In its hand, it carried a weapon, a sleek, curved blade that pulsed with energy. Kael's heart pounded. He could feel the beast within him stirring, demanding release, but he fought it down, his mind racing. If he transformed now, the scout would alert the others. If he stayed hidden, he might survive another night. The scout paused, its head tilting as if sensing something. Kael held his breath, his muscles coiled like springs. Then, without warning, the scout lunged, its blade slicing through the air where Kael had been moments before. Kael rolled to his feet, his transformation surging to the surface. His bones cracked and shifted, his fur bristling as he rose to his full height, towering over the scout. The alien hesitated, its red eye flickering. Kael didn't give it a chance to recover. With a snarl, he lunged, his claws tearing through the scout's armor like paper. The alien let out a gurgling scream before collapsing in a heap. Kael stood over the body, his chest heaving. The beast within him roared in triumph, but Kael felt no joy. He knew this was only the beginning. The Vortex would come for him now. They would hunt him like they hunted everything else. But this time, the hunter would become the prey. The sound of footsteps echoed through the abandoned subway tunnel, each one sending a jolt of tension through Kael's body. He crouched low, his golden eyes scanning the darkness. Beside him, Jax fiddled nervously with a handheld device, its screen casting a faint blue glow on his young face. Garrick stood a few feet away, his rifle trained on the tunnel's entrance. "They're close," Jax whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm picking up movement about a click east of here." Kael growled softly, his claws flexing. He didn't trust the humans, not entirely. But they were his only chance of survival, and theirs. The Vortex had escalated their hunt, deploying drones and patrols to track down the last pockets of resistance. Kael's encounter with the scout had drawn their attention, and now they were all targets. "We need to move," Garrick said, his voice low and gravelly. "If they find us here, we're dead." Kael nodded, his eyes never leaving the tunnel. He could smell them, the metallic tang of their armor, the faint ozone scent of their weapons. They were closing in. The group moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Jax led the way, his device guiding them through the maze of tunnels. Garrick brought up the rear, his rifle at the ready. Kael stayed in the middle, his senses on high alert. They emerged into a large chamber, its walls lined with rusted machinery and broken pipes. In the center of the room was a makeshift camp, the remnants of a fire still soldering in a metal drum. Kael's nose twitched as he caught a familiar scent. Rook. "Over here," Jax called, crouching beside a pile of debris. He held up a small object, a Vortex tracking device. "They've been here. Recently." Kael's growl deepened. Rook had betrayed them, selling their location to the Vortex in exchange for his own safety. The thought made Kael's blood boil. He had trusted Rook, had fought beside him, and now, because of him, they were all in danger. A sudden noise made them all freeze. Kael's ears twitched as he turned toward the source. A faint clicking sound, like metal on stone. His eyes narrowed as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Rook. "You shouldn't have come here," Rook said, his voice cold and emotionless. "They're already on their way." Garrick raised his rifle, but Kael stepped forward, his claws extended. "Why?" he snarled, his voice a low rumble. Rook shrugged. "Survival. Isn't that what we're all fighting for?" Before Kael could respond, the room was flooded with light as Vortex soldiers descended from above, their weapons trained on the group. Kael roared, his transformation surging to the surface as he lunged at the nearest soldier. The battle was chaos. Kael tore through the aliens with brutal efficiency, his claws and teeth rending flesh and armor alike. Garrick and Jax fought back to back, their weapons firing in rapid succession. But the Vortex were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. As the last soldier fell, Kael turned to Rook, his eyes blazing with fury. But Rook was already gone, vanished into the shadows. Kael howled, the sound echoing through the chamber. The hunt was far from over. The Vortex stronghold loomed ahead, a towering structure of black metal and glowing green lights. Kael stood at the edge of the forest, his golden eyes fixed on the fortress. Behind him, Garrick and Jax exchanged uneasy glances. "This is suicide," Garrick muttered, reloading his rifle. Kael didn't respond. He could feel the beast within him stirring, eager for the fight. The Vortex had taken everything from him, his home, his humanity. Now, it was time to take something from them. The group moved quickly, their footsteps silent on the forest floor. As they approached the stronghold, Kael's senses picked up the faint hum of the Vortex's weapon, a massive device capable of wiping out all life on Earth. It was their final objective. The assault began with a roar as Kael charged the gates, his claws tearing through the metal like butter. Vortex soldiers poured out to meet him, their weapons firing in a deadly barrage. Kael moved like a whirlwind, his claws and teeth rending flesh and armor alike. Garrick and Jax followed close behind, their weapons picking off the soldiers that Kael missed. But the Vortex were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. As they fought their way deeper into the stronghold, Kael's transformation began to waver. His body was battered and bleeding, his strength fading. But he pushed on, driven by sheer willpower. Finally, they reached the heart of the stronghold, a massive chamber dominated by the Vortex weapon. The Vortex leader stood before it, his featureless mask glowing with an eerie light. "You are persistent," the leader said, his voice cold and mechanical, "but you cannot win." Kael didn't respond. With a roar, he lunged at the leader, his claws extended. The two clashed in a flurry of blows, their movements a blur of speed and power. As the battle raged, Garrick and Jax worked to disable the weapon. but time was running out. With a final desperate effort, Kael tore through the leader's armor, his claws piercing the alien's chest. The leader let out a gurgling scream before collapsing, but it was too late. The weapon was activating. Kael turned to Garrick and Jax. "Go," he growled. "I'll hold them off." Garrick hesitated, but Jax grabbed his arm. "We have to go." As the two fled, Kael turned to face the oncoming Vortex soldiers. With a final defiant howl, he charged into the fray. The explosion lit up the night sky, a blinding flash of light that could be seen for miles. When the dust settled, the stronghold was gone, reduced to rubble. Garrick and Jax stood at the edge of the forest, their faces grim. "Do you think he made it?" Jax asked. Garrick shook his head. "I don't know." As they turned to leave, a faint howl echoed through the night, sending a shiver down their spines. Kael's sacrifice had saved them, but the hunt was far from over.